2, 3. So good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Russell, and we are here today for the Mission Valley Selpa Regional Policy Board. Today is June 16th, 2020, and I would like to welcome all our members of the Regional Policy Board. Before we begin with our introductions, I would like to do a couple of reviewing our understandings for today, and that is Governor Newsom signed some changes to the Brown Act, which allows us to meet via this Zoom platform. And so we obviously are engaging today using Zoom rather than meeting in together in the district office of Fremont. For the board members, as well as our superintendents and district special ed directors, I would kindly ask that you do show your faces. Certainly as professionals, if you need to exit and turn that off for a second, we understand. As we move forward today and that you would like to give input, or as we are voting on items, if you could please use your hand signal, which is indicated by the reactions button at the bottom of your Zoom screen for both commenting as well as for voting. We also are going to be having a Google Doc, which has been noted on the meeting invites for public comment, and Sara will help us with accessing that public comment at the appropriate time in the agenda. So at this time, what I would like to do is I would again like to welcome all of our participants here today at the Regional Policy Board meeting. And I see, John, you're the first box at the top of my gallery. So do you mind introducing yourself, and then we can go around or through the gallery?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm John Thompson, Superintendent for the New Haven Unified School District. Looks like I'll pass it off to Sara.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sara Kapler. I'm the Director for Special Services for New Haven Unified School District.
Good morning. This is Letty Salinas, Acting Superintendent for Newark Unified School District.
Good morning, I'm Raul Zamora, Acting Superintendent for Fremont Unified.
Fran English, Director of Special Education for Fremont Unified.
My name is Robbie Pascual, Director of Accounting for Fremont Unified School District and for the Mission Valley Selpa. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hear you, Robbie. Thank you. Okay. And then I believe Jackie Neft, you're on as well.
I'm Jackie. I'm a kindergarten inclusion teacher in Fremont, and I'm part of the Community Advisory Committee.
Great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue now. And one of the part of the bylaws for the Mission Valley Selpa, the Regional Policy Board, is that we do need a quorum to be able to pass any of the action items that we have on our agenda. And at this point, with the 3 superintendents attending and 3 board members not on the Zoom call, we don't currently have a quorum. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through more of our information items and see if possibly we have more the board members attending at some later point. So at this point, we're going to focus on more of the information and circle back to the agenda items that have an action item associated with them. Just again, as a quick review, because we have some newer members on our regional policy board, the Mission Valley Selpa is comprised of 3 different districts: Newark, New Haven, and Fremont. Together, all 3 districts serve over 6,000 students with IEPs. Selpas were developed in 1977, and their regional areas organized to provide more equitable funding two districts, i.e. then smaller districts and larger districts were combined together so that as monies were funneled into the Selpas, they could be distributed to the districts, and all students could benefit from those monies being pooled. At this point, there are over 128 different Selpas within the state of California, and they're all organized slightly differently. In Fremont, we share two programs. We share our Transition Partnership Program. So the grant that comes in for TPP is shared by all three districts. All three districts also serve our Infant Services Grant, and that is our grant that provides services to infant, toddlers, and their families for children that are 0 to 3 years of age, or excuse me, 0 through up until the 3rd birthday. And those are for infants that are deaf, blind, and orthopedically impaired. So all three of our districts are technically serving students 0 through 22 years of age through the provision of special education services. Okay. One of the other things I'd like to begin our meeting with, and that I have attached to the agenda, and that is that the statewide Selpa organization has come up with a statement. And this is in regards to the recent things that have been happening within our nation related to the death of George Floyd. And as a Selpa organization, like many organizations throughout the state of California, the organization is committing to fighting social injustice and coming together on behalf of our students to work against racial bias, violence, and discrimination. Thank you, Sara, for sending that, or for showing that dear colleague letter. Okay. On our Community Advisory Committee, the president was Melissa Howell, and Melissa has done just an outstanding job this year, helping us create a very vibrant, information-filled newsletter. She's also been instrumental in the parent education and advocacy activities that we've had over the course of this last year. I want to acknowledge Melissa for the fine leadership work she's done as the president of the Community Advisory Committee. She is now at this point, though, leaving to teach at the Savannah College of Design, and she and her family are moving to Georgia this summer. So Melissa, we want to thank you on behalf of the Mission Valley Selpa, and then we also want to wish you well as you transition to your new position in Georgia. The other acknowledgement we want to make today is that Ray Rodriguez, one of the board members in Newark Unified School District, is retiring this year. And I believe Ray has served for, I believe it's a couple decades in the capacity of a board member with Newark Unified School District. Ray's daughter is a teacher in Fremont, a special education teacher, and Ray has been a tireless advocate for students with disabilities and has represented Newark and the students of Newark exceptionally well. Right. We wish Ray the best as he retires. The next item, number 2, is our January Regional Policy Board minutes. As many of you may remember, we had a Regional Policy Board scheduled for March, but given the shutdowns of the school, that meeting was canceled. And so you can see Sara has brought up the minutes. You may also be opening the minutes on your personal computers and reviewing those. At this point, we do not have the quorum necessary to vote on approving the minutes. So at this point, unless there's other comment, I would like us to put that aside for the moment. Okay. All right, let's move in then to item number 3, and that is the Mission Valley Selpa Administrative Unit operating budget. as well as the proposed operating budget for the 2021 school year. And at this point, I would like to kindly ask Robbie Pascal if he does not mind reviewing these documents with us.
Good morning, everybody. What is in front of you is the 2019-20 Administrative Unit Proposed Operating Budget, and this is as of June 6. Uh, June 8th, when I prepared the document. And what you would see here is we have columns for the budget, our actuals and encumbrances as of June 8th, and what is the remaining balance. So the carryover from prior year is $101,000 with a current revenue allocation of 216 with a total allocation of $317,000. We have received more than $101,000, but we usually put in the revenue allocation once the actual P2 certification comes from CDE, and usually that is certified late June, early July. And then the following that is all of our expenditures from the Selpa director to the clerical support to the stipend for the accounting director, and then other operating expenses. You all would see also down at the bottom for the carryover from prior year, the Regional Policy Board approved on October 29 allocation of $100,000 for the to be split by to all Selpa members because we've been carrying over a good chunk, $101,000 for that one. The board suggested or approved allocating that money to the Selpa members. We have not spent that much money. We spent approximately $219,000 from all of the operating budget, excluding the reserve or the admin fee. And then we still have a remaining balance of $52,000. With that, I know the Regional Policy Board also approved $10,000 for Special Olympics and some other special events, let's say the Special Education Ball, which I have not seen an expenditure on it. I'm not sure if those events actually happened, but I didn't see that in the expenditures.
I think sorry, Robbie. I think that the ball was canceled.
Okay. And go ahead.
Interrupt for a second. As we are going through the operating budget today, and Robbie has noted, there are going to be several areas in which that which was budgeted for this year is going to come in significantly lower. Obviously, travel related to as director has virtually been zero since March. Also, as Robbie said, the ball was canceled. We also had the Special Ed Olympics canceled, and therefore those transportation costs were not added. So we are not going to spend the current projected budget. That's going to lead to further conversation as we finish, but I'll let Robbie continue through.
Yes. So out of the $317,000 that we have an operating budget, $257,000 is already spent, assuming that the admin fee of 8% is going to be spent, but usually that is based on expenditures. So it's just encumbered, not fully expended. So there's still going to be some remaining balance in that line item. Approximately right now, it is estimated that we're going to carry over 60,000 plus to the following year. And that ends my report.
Okay. So again, Robbie, just to be clear, of the 257 that's encumbered, that includes the amounts that are being directed back to the districts from the carryover.
That is true, yes.
All right. So this year, though, that money that we have not spent, that we would also be looking to send back to the districts next year. And we would use the same distribution formula using this year, and that would be, each district would receive a percentage based on their ADA.
Yes, it would be we recommended when we did the allocation or distribution for the carryover of last year that we use prior year ADA. So it's a final number. It's not going to change, unlike using current year ADA. I have to wait until the end of the year until we get the P-annual attendance report. So we are going to be using prior year attendance.
Okay. Any questions right now on the current operating budget for the Selpa administrative unit?
Karen, I have a quick question or a quick comment. I think our board, we have a board member in your waiting room there. So if you look over, I think you have access to let him in. I do not. So
Okay, great. Let me make sure that we can do that. Sara, do you have that right now? I believe you're listed as our host.
Hello. Sorry, I was sharing screen and neglecting my host duties. Hi, Mr. Wing. How are you? Jeff, did you make it in? Can anybody see? Maybe I'll stop.
And then I would also like just to take a side. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the Regional Policy Board meeting. Great. I would also like to make sure that we note that Jan Hamilton, the director of Newark, or special ed director of Newark Unified School District, has been on the call as well. And also we have Andrea Rodriguez, who is part of the Community Advisory Council, a parent of a student in New Haven Unified School District. So great to see you as well, Andrea. Okay. All right, so we currently have 4 members, one more, and we will have that quorum. Again, good to see you, Jeff. To bring us back to where we were, Mr. Pascal was reviewing the current operating budget for the Selpa. Robbie, is there anything else that you would add in conclusion of that budget?
None.
Okay. All right, then if we can move on to the proposed operating budget for the school year 2020-21.
So in front of you is the proposed 2021 AU proposed operating budget. And this is as of May 21st. Carryover, I did not project for any carryover. I should have projected a carryover, but with uncertainty, I did not. But whatever is left from prior year 2019-20, it will be part of this carryover from prior year for the operating budget. Based on the revenue allocation, it is projected at $204,000, and the items below it are all of our proposed expenditures for the Selpa director. Benefits, stipend and benefits included is around $47,000. The clerical support is $3,900. The stipend for the accounting director would be $5,000. Administrative expenses, these are any other operating expenses, like say supplies, those kind of things, paper, that would be put into admin expenses. CAC, Community Advisory Committee, is allocated $4,000, and then travel and conference for the Selpa meetings and other professional developments is projected at $18,000, and so forth. We've allocated some of them. There's still a remaining of $1,200, $1,276, and you would see it under other operating expenditures, unallocated. So that amount of money based on the allocation or distribution of the funds, there's still $1,200 unallocated or undistributed. Um, I left the carryover prior year, just a line item with $0 amount. The percentage is going to change if the RPB do approve allocating prior year monies once that money is carried over to the new fiscal year or subsequent fiscal year of fiscal year 2021. Admin fee is at 8%, and the reserve for the operating budget or AU is 8,251 with a total expenditure budgeted at $204,000. Um, the basis of this allocation is based on prior year, what we have budgeted from the past year, um, and that's what we have projected in this proposed budget. That ends my report.
Thank you, Robbie. As we're going through this, probably some of our largest expenditures include our web-based IEP system that's shared by all 3 of the districts, and that's the Special Education Information System, or many people refer to that as SACE, and that's the format that each of the districts use to hold their IEPs, document IEPs, upload reports, etc., as well as provides for kind of the data management of special education services. We also have included there the SACE integration cost, and that allows SACE and the districts to integrate that information so that it can be accessible for each district's MIS department so they can extract data to fill in for CalPADS and other kinds of reporting efforts. Again, there's a lot of items on here that at this point are questionable. The statewide Selpa Association has voted to not have any meetings in person until re-looking at that in January of 2021. So the travel budget conceivably will be significantly less. Maybe if the superintendents don't mind at this point what they foresee in terms of staff and travel, because we have used some of that budget to send staff within each of the districts for various trainings. I'm not sure what the sentiment or kind of the recommendations are going to be from each of the districts along travel and conference lines.
I think the only thing I would add is that the staff development will probably be basically online and not travel for our district if there's any funds available for staff development.
Okay.
And I have no idea what we're going to be doing next year other than trying to maximize, depending on what the state sorts out, but right now it looks great. The legislator just eliminated all of our cuts, so we're back on, but I have a feeling when they break out their calculators, it may be a different story when they actually approve the budget. We'll see. It's just way too early to tell about what's going to happen with anything, both from a COVID standpoint and from a budget standpoint.
I would say the same for Newark. We certainly know that there's a lot of really great modules out there for professional development, self-paced for our teachers. Possibility of exploring some of that, but I think at this point, just holding for now and keeping options open for later in the year.
Great. Okay. As we're going to go into later, we do have some issues within our district related to compliance, most notably disproportionality. So I would, at this point, like to keep our travel and conference budget as it exists, as we may need to bring in people to address some of those issues. But I hear loud and clear from the superintendents that it seems to be the consensus that we use those in terms of more virtual trainings as opposed to sending anybody anywhere at this time.
Karen, sorry to interrupt. Trustee Sweeney is in the waiting room.
Great. Sara, do you mind admitting Trustee Sweeney?
He's in.
Great. Welcome, Larry, to the Regional Policy Board meeting. We are glad to have you as part of the group. Do you need the group to kind of do a quick swing through with introductions, or are you comfortable in seeing who's present on your screen and moving forward from here?
I'm fine moving forward and keeping your time very valuable. Having a little trouble with my webcam, but please proceed.
Great, we're really glad to have you. Just a reminder today that we are live streaming this meeting, and Luis Zamora is projecting that, I believe, on the district's channel. So Robbie has just reviewed our 2021 Administrative Unit proposed operating budget. Sara has projected that on the screen, and probably each of you have that ability to pull that up on your own computers. The total expenditures for the next year are $204,000. As we noted, we expect that to be significantly less in actual expenditures. And as Robbie had noted, any amounts not spent in that budget will be carried over back directly to the districts by the end of next year. And that carryover disbursement is going to be based on district ADA numbers. And I think roughly we're looking at something like Fremont being 65%, Newark being 10 to 11, and 30 something from New Haven. Am I right, Robbie, on that one?
Let me just look at the next item because it would have the ADA on that.
Karen, Robbie denoted it on the budget. If you look at it, it's right here. I'll highlight it in blue. Nope, I can't highlight it in blue.
Actually, that ADA percentage, that is based from 2018-19.
I see. So it'll be updated slightly. Got it.
Yes.
Thank you, Robbie.
All right, so at this point, do we have a motion to approve the proposed operating budget for the 2021 school year?
I'll move.
Thank you, John. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so if the board members and the superintendents can kindly indicate their vote using the reaction button, we have a motion to approve the proposed operating budget for the Mission Valley Selpa 2021. All those in favor, please indicate with a thumbs up. Okay. All those nay. Okay. And any abstentions? Okay, Robbie, I'm going to refer back to you. Can you review what the vote was? I think Bobby needs to be unmuted.
That's on me. Sorry about that. Was Raul the one that seconded?
Yes.
Okay. And then I couldn't see if there were any abstentions. I didn't have a full screen picture of all the members.
Okay. I believe that we had, John, did you vote aye for that as well?
I did.
Okay, great. I believe that we have unanimous ayes on that one.
All
so
right.
The operating budget for 2021 passes. Okay, great. All right. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is the distribution exhibit for the 1920 school year. And then Robbie will also bring us through the proposed budget for 2021. Robbie, may I yield the floor to you?
Yes. Just waiting for the shared screen to come up. Okay. So in front of you is the updated projection for 2019-20 Mission Valley Selpa allocation. Nothing has changed with the COLA because it's already it's state adopted. The proration factor from the previous projection that we had was that the deficit or the reduction is at 2.32%. When we received the P1 certification, it was lesser. It's only 0.9654%. So we're getting more money, or yeah, we're getting more money. But of course, this is based on P1. We still have to wait until P2 certification, and hopefully we're going to receive that in end of June, early part of July. Or usually it happens in late part of June. Um, Other things that have changed is the special ed property tax. We received information from Alameda County Office of Ed that was dated April 29, and this is based on P2 certification, or P2 attendance report. However, we still have to wait for the P annual report. Um, and usually that comes in either July or August when we are trying to close the books. And once we receive that, we're going to update this again and send it to the school districts for their year-end closing. So the next few pages is a funding exhibit. This is a pro forma that we copied from the certification from CDE. I put it in Excel. Usually this comes in a fixed data. So I've updated this based on the information and the rates that we received from CDE, and we put it here. However, CDE doesn't usually have an updated ADA because they get it late or they post it late. So the allocation in here, the attendance that we use is based from the P2 attendance report that I received from all district members or SELPA members. And the total that we're going to be receiving here, if right now the amount that we're receiving for SELPA is $557 per ADA, with COLA included in there. And if we look at section B, the adjusted base is 27 million, and you would see above it this 0.9903458. That's the proration factor. If you reduce that by 1%, you're going to get the difference that I mentioned earlier. That it is they're only reducing our money by 0.96%.
Robbie,
Usually,
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
yes,
May Chan is trying to get into the meeting, so I need to switch off of the screen. I don't want to mess you up. I don't see her.
no problem.
Um, she was texting me that she's trying to get in, but I cannot see her. So I periodically may have to switch off. I apologize. It's hard to let people in and share screens. Go ahead.
Okay. And then COLA is COLA is $905,000. Because we are declining in ADA, they were reducing us by 720. The reduction in ADA is 721 ADA. So that's a good $373,000 that they reduce to our budget. And Section C, funding calculation. This just shows what is our target. And then on Section D is our funding entitlement. If you can scroll down, Sarah. So total overall, um, for if you can scroll down some more, the calculation includes the low incidence, the adjustment for any NSS. Oh, you went so far.
Sorry. What do you want
Okay,
me to stop at?
there you go. Can you please stop? So on section J, this is the apportionment summary. So our AB 602 funding is $24.9 million with $836,000 for uh, program resources and regionalized services. Low incidence is $153,000. Out of home care is 70. I think if I could read that, it's $76,000. Overall adjustment for or total revenue based on just AB 602 would be $26 million. Can you please scroll down? And in here, um, on the first section, this is how the money is going to be distributed to the SELPA members. And I'll just pay attention on after number 5, AB 602. Um, $17.8 million or 68.39% is going to Fremont. New Haven is 5.4 million or 20%, 20.76%, and Newark is 2.8 million or 10.85%, with a total of $26 million, which is the 100%, which is equal to the amount to the total that was in the funding exhibit. Then what comes next is the property tax. This is based on P2 that we received from ACUE in April. This would be amended again once we get the P annual from ACUE. And then what followed next from 7 to 18 from page, um, this page and the last page are the grants that we received from federal and state resources. So we have our local assistance, we have our federal preschool, our preschool local, our mental health allocation, our preschool staff development, and other grants. Just like what Karen mentioned earlier at the beginning, that some of the programs or some of the funding is set in Fremont Unified School District, but servicing all SELPA members. That includes the Workability 2 or the TPP program, the Alternate Dispute Resolution in the Infant program. Um, those are the programs that are uh, Fremont Unified is keeping and servicing all district members.
So Robbie, I have a question. Again, we are reviewing the expenditures for 2019-20, so this last school year. And did we use an average method, the ADA average from the last 3 years to determine these numbers?
No, that is projected for 2020-21 based
Okay.
on the May revise. The 1920 is still based on the old funding level, and it is based on ADA and on if you would go back to the funding exhibit, which is page 2 of this packet, is that on line line A9, where you would see $557.27. This is the amount of money that we are receiving per ADA. So we're actually not the lowest at statewide, but we are not the highest on statewide also. We're actually in an average. So when we go back or when we go to the projection for 2020-21, that's where we're going to see a big difference on this one. ADA wise, just like what Karen was saying, it is the average of the ADA. This one, they're still funding us based on um, current year, but if you are declining, you can use prior year ADA. And for Selpa, for the Mission Valley Selpa, we are a declining ADA Selpa, so we're using prior year ADA to get our funding. To um, and usually even in school regular school for school districts, if a school district is declining, you can be funded, or you have the option to be funded with the higher ADA current year or prior year. And for Fremont Unified, we are declining, so we are using prior year ADA. I believe Newark is also declining, and they're using uh, prior year ADA to get their funding.
So as we actually, as John alluded to, are seeing some slight increases in the budget for next year for special ed, this is tempered by the declining enrollment factors, which affects the overall money that we are receiving as respective districts.
Yes.
All right, so any other questions right now on the 2019-20 distribution exhibit? If hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the exhibit?
I'll move again.
Thank you, John. Do we have a second?
Larry, I'll second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving the 2019-20 distribution exhibit for the Mission Valley Selpa, please indicate by either a thumbs up or using the reaction button. So all those in favor? Okay. Larry, do we have your, oh, thank you very much. Great. Any nays? All right, the motion then passes unanimously. Robbie, can you please now review the 2020-21 funding exhibit for this coming school year in terms of the monies coming into our SELPA?
Yes. I'll wait for the item to show up on the screen.
Sara, do we need to take a break for you to check who might be waiting in the participant area?
I've been checking periodically. I'm looking now. I don't see May.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, Robbie, go ahead.
Okay. So in front of you is the projection for fiscal year 2021 Mission Valley allocation. And what I have done here is based on the current information that we have, based on the governor's May revise, we are using a higher rate. As I mentioned earlier, we are now going to be funded at $645 per ADA, not that $550 something that I mentioned earlier for 2019-20. And this is based on the governor's um, proposal for 2021. And just like what Karen mentioned earlier, that this $645 per ADA is based on a 3-year rolling ADA. So we have to look at 2021 projected ADA that I received from SELPA members, 1920 P2 ADA that report that I received from members, and then actual 2018-19 ADA. So average that 3 out, and that would be the rolling average for the ADA for the $645. The proration factor is projected at 0. I have not heard anything that there's going to be a decrease at the 645, probably in the future, because in the past years they are reducing our apportionment per ADA. Our special ed property tax, we are using 2019 P2 ADA or P2 report from ACOE, but we are distributing it by the ADA that we are actually getting. We're just assuming the dollar amount, total dollar amount for the SELPA, but not for each district. That would come when we receive the ADA or the report from ACOE. And then,
Robbie, excuse
yes,
me, I'm going to interrupt for a second. And as we do discuss these various topics, if we can kind of remember to be mindful of our acronyms. And I'm not sure if all of our members, most of them know, but again, I'm just going to review. ACOE would be the Alameda County Office of Education. And as we use the acronym ADA, we are referring to the average daily attendance. Thanks,
yes.
Robbie.
Sorry. And then our federal state grants is based on 2019-20. Um, I call it again, which I put it there, grant award notification. So I have to make that assumption that we're going to receive the same dollar amount until we hear otherwise. And the other resource code or other programs like early intervention, dispute resolution, workability, those are grants that are part of the distribution exhibit, but they are administered at Fremont that serve all SELPA members. So if you would scroll down, actually, you went too far under the funding exhibit. One more page up. Oh, actually, I believe two more page up.
Is that
Yes,
right?
yes. So don't look at the letters that let's say on section A, ADA rates, current year SELPA, A1. If you're going to look, I have A1, B1, and then E. Um, I was not able to fix the section or the codes that they have, even at the CDE website or the data that we receive from our organization. They haven't fixed that yet, so please don't pay attention to those. But I'll be referencing it as a line. So just like I mentioned, for ADA, we look at current year SELPA ADA, which is projected 2021 ADA that I received from the SELPA members, the prior year, and then the prior year SELPA. Prior year is basically 1819. And then what is the SELPA 3-year average, which is an average of 50,000 24 and 37 attendance. Then the calculation on B is just showing what we were funded before at $557, and now for fiscal year 2021 you would look at B4. New 2021 blended base rate is $645. So we are funded at 645 based on the May revised projection of the governor. That leave us a net funding of 20. I couldn't see that. $29 million. There's other on section C is the rate for the program specialists and regionalized services. We don't have necessarily small SELPA. Our program specialists and regionalized services apportionment is $825,000. Low incidence is 155. Out of home care is 75,000. NPS extraordinary cost pool. This is a reimbursement process. So usually in the month of July, I would be asking the SELPA directors and their fiscal or my contact person who files for submission of the non-public school extraordinary costs. They would I would send them an email saying that please file for your claim, and then provide it to me with the information that I would need, that we would be submitting to Alameda County Office of Ed and to California Department of Education for reimbursement. And again, on Section J is the summary of our apportionment. So we're getting a net funding of 29.2 million. Then the rest, 825,000, 155,000, 75,000. Overall for AB 602 is $30.2 million. So the next slide, or the next report below it, is how we're going to distribute that $30 million. So what was how we are projecting this, because in the past what we have done, funding doesn't mean that's how we're going to be allocating the money to the SELPA members. We are still allocating the SELPA money, the AB 602 money, based on current year ADA.
Robbie, may
Yes.
I ask, should the title of this say 2021 distribution projected?
Oh, that's true. Sorry about that. I didn't catch that on my report.
No worries. And as we just make a note of that, so we can see clearly that the base rate has increased to 645 from, was it 557 last year, Robbie?
Yes.
So we are seeing an increase, which is exceptionally positive. Obviously, we have all sorts of different budgetary needs, which again, we can discuss. And I don't mean to interrupt. I'll let you go ahead and continue, Robbie.
Okay. So for the total AB 602, the total funding for each district is 20.7 going to Fremont Unified, or 68.4%. New Haven is 6.2 million, or 20.65%. And Newark is getting 3.3 million at 10.95%, with a total of 30.2 million, which is the same dollar amount for the funding exhibit that I presented earlier. And then the rest of the grant, when I mentioned about the special education property tax, I am projecting the same total at $3.04 million that we're going to receive for the property tax. And we are distributing it based on the ADA. This might change. This will going to change once we actually receive the letter from Alameda County Office of Ed for the actual special ed property tax distribution. And the rest are all of the federal and state grants. The assumption is that we're going to receive the same dollar amount, total dollar amount for from prior year, but allocated, of course, by either current year ADA or pupil count. And that's in my report. Is there any questions? I know I should have asked that, or asked that question earlier, if there's any other question for the reports.
So as Robbie has outlined, the amount of money coming to the Selpa to be distributed to the district is close to a little over $30 million. We all know that this does not cover the provision of special education funds in each of the districts, and that the general fund is also contributing to the respective budgets in each of the districts. We have a slight increase this year to work with, and we also have additional funds coming directly into each of the district to help offset some of the preschool funds. These are unrestricted, so districts may use them as they designate appropriate. As we're looking to this coming year, again, I'm going to go back to John, your earlier comments. There are so many unknowns. Probably one of the most significant issues that we're going to be addressing for all of our students is looking at mental health. How are they coping in this new learning environment, and how are we supporting them? Luckily, the California Department of Ed has decreased some of the restrictions around our mental health dollars and how those dollars can be spent. We also are looking at another big issue related to compensatory ed. And as each of the superintendents and board members are aware, if a family believes for some reason or not that their IEP has not been implemented with fidelity, that they can make a case for compensatory education. Right now, obviously, every school system has completely restructured the provision of all services, general ed, as well as special education services. So we are hoping that the governor's budget will also include some additional funds for us to provide some additional education services to our students with special needs to address whatever deficits may have been created over the last few months. We also are going to see, as many of you are aware, basically between March and June, we put a hold on initial assessments and many of our reevaluations. Part of that is because federal and state law are very clear that when a student is assessed, that part of that assessment includes an in-person observation. And given the guidelines from our public health departments, that we are not having staff interact directly with our students. So this now puts a backlog of assessments, and I'm sure each of our directors can speak directly to what those numbers look like, but we are obviously looking at significant numbers of kids that need to be assessed initially, as well as through reevaluations. This doesn't begin to touch on some of the anticipated costs related to protective equipment, cleaning, rescheduling using a variety of different hybrid model of maybe students attending every other day and some still virtual learning platforms included. I have included on this agenda California Department of Ed's reopening guidelines. If anybody's had a chance to peruse those related to special ed, you'll see the actual guidelines are very sparse. So many districts are in the process of probably what feels like inventing the wheel. Obviously, a combination of wanting to allow LEAs as much local control as possible, but it also feels somewhat difficult to not have a little bit more structure as we each seek to develop those hybrid models. So I guess bottom line, what we're looking at here in terms of our projected funding exhibit is a small amount more money in the special ed budgets. I don't anticipate that special ed is not going to be seeking similar, if not higher, contributions from general education budgets. One of the things that's to be mindful, and I'm quite sure each of the districts are in the process of dealing with some very, very difficult decisions around budgeting and millions of dollars needing to be cut. Because of the unique nature of special education and the concept of maintenance of effort, the special education budget cannot be decreased, i.e. that by law we must maintain the budget for special ed. That being said, we are in no danger of not spending the dollars that we are currently receiving. Each district goes into the general education budget. So that's where we are. I'll open it up to our board members if they have any questions of Robbie or me on this topic.
I just want to add that there is some negotiations happening at the Capitol, and we don't know what would that end up with. So same thing with the district's budget, same thing probably with the Selpa. This is the May revise. of the governor. And we know that the negotiation is with the legislature and the governor. And probably until we know what actually gets adopted on the budget side by the governor, things still going to change, just like what you said, Karen.
Thank you, Robbie. Larry?
Just trying to get unmuted there. I think everybody saw in the news last night that the legislature passed the budget, knowing that the governor will take it apart. But the reason they passed it, was the deadline was June 15th. And if they didn't pass it, they wouldn't get paid. So I think it's the same old, as far as we're concerned. We're going to have to, as you were saying, work with a very loose schedule to try and pull everything together. And I really appreciate all the hard work that's being done by everybody in special ed, because probably more than anyone else, you guys have the most unknown in the future, and you have to predict how you're going to spend the money and affect the most kids. So kudos to you.
Thank you, Larry. All right, then do I have a motion to approve the projected funding exhibit for the 2021 school year?
Move.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor of the funding exhibit for 2021, please indicate a thumbs up. Okay. Are there any nays? All right, the allocation for the funding allocation for the 2021 school year has passed. All right, if we refer back to our agenda now, and we're on item number 6, this is reviewing the memorandums of understanding between the Mission Valley Special Education Local Planning Area and Fremont Unified School District. These now have been on our Regional Policy Board agenda for the last 2 years, and they were originally developed when Sara Kapler was our special education director during the 18-19 school year. The little bit of history on those. So as we've just understood, as Robbie's reviewed the budget, monies come into the Selpa, and Fremont is the administrative unit for distributing those monies. Fremont is also the administrative unit for implementing 2 of the shared grants. One of them, the infant services, and the second one, our transition partnership program. So the 2 memorandums of understandings that we have listed under item number 6 indicate that Fremont will be the administrator of those grants. I know we've gone over these before, but it outlines what the responsibilities of Fremont are as the administrator of the grant, and then it also outlines what are the roles and responsibilities of the respective districts being served. Our big issue on both of the 2 MOUs was how are we going to negotiate when there are conflicts arise, and if a district a family chooses to take a district to due process or engage in some alternate form of dispute resolution around an incident. So what we have decided is that in this case, each district is going to remain responsible for resolving any of the disputes. One of the concerns was this does present a bit of a problem when Fremont is the district providing the services, but what we have noted is that if there is beginning to be any kind of an issue, Fremont will bring in the respective district to resolve it at the very lowest level. Should it escalate beyond there, the respective district will remain responsible for that liability. Is there anything else that our district directors would like to add as we develop this MOU and what the understandings were that we engaged in? And what I would like to do in the fall when we meet, I will have both our the program coordinator for the Transition Partnership Program, as well as our Infant Services Coordinator, come in and give a short summary of the services that are provided under both those programs. I think in the past year, we served over 30 infants that were either deaf, blind, or orthopedically impaired, and their families. And that I don't have the numbers in front of me for the Transition Partnership Program, but that also has been very successful in terms of, prior to COVID, linking our students with jobs and other transition services. All right. Unless there's any other further discussion, I would like to ask that we have two motions, and each of them would be to respectively approve the two MOUs. Each of them will go through one by one that we have listed on the agenda. These MOUs go through June 2021. So at the June Regional Policy Board meeting of 2021, we would be looking to review them, or renew or review them. So do I have a motion to approve the Infant Services MOU?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving?
Karen, I'm sorry. I can't see the full screen and don't recognize the voices. Can you please let me know who that was?
That was Leticia Salinas moving.
Thank you. And I believe it was Raul seconding.
I think it was Trustee Sweeney.
It was Larry Sweeney. Yeah.
Thank you, Larry. Great. So all those in favor of approving the infant MOU, please indicate by a thumbs up. Do we have any nays? Okay, I believe the motion has passed unanimously. The second motion then we would need is to approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Selpa and Fremont for the Transition Partnership Program. Do I have a motion?
Larry, so moved.
Thank you, Trustee Sweeney. Is there a second?
Jeff, I'm second.
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor of approving the revised Transition Partnership Program Memorandum of Understanding, please indicate by raising your thumb. Thank you. Do we have any nays? And I believe that motion approves unanimously as well. Okay, thank you very much. Our item number 7 is monitoring activity. And I'd like to preface this by noting that I really feel all kind of agencies throughout the state of California have been kind of knocked off kilter as we're all seeking to adjust to new demands from us as LEAs in serving our students. And so as Robbie said, you know, he had some difficulty in getting the forms to put together the budgets. As the California Department of Ed, the Special Education Unit reports back to districts on the our indicators, obviously there's been disruption in that. A great example is one of the items that California Department of Ed monitors is suspensions and expulsions. And I believe both New Haven and Fremont were not meeting our targeted review elements, i.e. we had an over-identification of Black and Hispanic students that had been suspended or disciplined. Well, obviously since school closure, that data has drastically changed as a result of kids not being in school. Overall, though, we just received the elements that are going to be reviewed, and this is going to require each of our districts to do a long and hard look in how we are providing our services to students. Both Fremont and New Haven were identified as significantly disproportionate. And that means that for over 3 years, each of those districts has had difficulty in not in over identifying students in some capacity. Sara, if you don't mind, if you could please open up the link there for the Mission Valley Selpa, the monitoring activities. And I have put who our contacts are with CDE in the beginning there. And as we move down further on this document, you can see a little bit up, Sara, that it's just the text box there.
Sorry, my computer's frozen at the moment. Just a second.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Okay, where do you want to be, Karen? There we go.
At this point, Fremont and New Haven have been identified for intensive monitoring, and that is related to their status as significantly disproportionate. They now are required to come up with a plan to address that disproportionality. They are also identified as needing to do an extensive review as related to preschool services. And all three districts have other kinds of issues. So I believe it's Fremont and New Haven, their grad rates are not meeting targets. New Haven has issues with, I believe it is the performance on LEA or ELA, English Language Arts, and their math measures. But each of our districts are either going to be in intensive or targeted review. Fran and Sara, do you mind recapping what each of you have done thus far as related to addressing significant disproportionality in your districts?
Sure, I'll go first. So we are gathering the stakeholders. We have selected our TA facilitator. Karen, help me out. TA is Technical Assistance Facilitator, Maureen Burness. And I've met with her a couple of times, and we are in the process of analyzing our data. Amy Fang has produced data sheets for us. The challenge has been getting everyone together in light of the school closure, but now that schools are out, we're thinking this might be a good time to get everyone together and report to the state by the end of the month. The actual report or the plan is due in December. We have several things going on. We've got PIR, we've got SIGDIS, and then in Fremont, we are also in differentiated assistance. So we have a lot on our plates, but we're going to try to use the groups, try to form a collaboration of sorts so that it's not, 3 totally separate things. But for now, we are looking at our root causes and trying to generate our plan around those.
Yeah, thank you. In New Haven, we also have selected our TA facilitator, Dr. Mildred Brown and Swinder Cooper, and they are in the process of facilitating focus groups prior to the end of the school year. So we met with the school psychologists, the principals, the assistant principals. We are significantly disproportionate in 2 areas. One is for discipline with our African American population, and one is for over-identification in the area of other health impaired. Additionally, we are working on targeted assistance for our graduation rates, statewide assessments, and our separate preschools. As you know, separate preschools is a sort of a tricky one because I don't think any of us run general ed preschools. And so all of our preschool programs are by nature special ed. And so that's been kind of challenging. We did enter into a contract, as I shared with this group last year, with Cadango. And, that has all the joys and challenges of a brand new program. And we only ran it for half a year. So it'll probably still feel really new and like we're working it out for another year or so. But, we're proud to be able to offer that opportunity, and I have hopes that that will help, provide a more varied kind of placement for our preschool students.
Thank you, Sarah. So as Fran had also alluded to, as well as Sarah, a part of the plans do involve a root cause analysis. And I'll just go on a slight tangent and just say that I understand how each of our respective districts may feel like this is hoop jumping at this point. And by that, I mean that we're being asked to kind of go through a series of hoops or hurdles to make sure boxes are checked, et cetera, as we've been identified for these plans and the SIGDIS and differentiated assistance. But I want us to just take a pause and focus on the fact that I think this is some of really the most important work that we do as educational leaders, and really significantly important as we address social justice issues and address racism in our culture. When we have significant numbers of Black and Hispanic young girls and boys being overly identified for discipline, it indicates a serious problem within our school districts. New Haven and Fremont are not alone in this. This is a problem throughout the state of California. So I would really want to encourage the superintendents, as they're working with their district leadership, to engage very seriously in this work, again, for the betterment of all of our students. Interesting, if we do some of a data dive, one of the areas that Fremont is noted for was an over-identification of white or Caucasian students, I believe, for other health impairment and emotional disturbance. Is that correct, Fran?
Yes, and then Hispanic students for specific learning disability.
Again, so this is really important work that we do as districts. One, we really want to make sure that students are appropriately assessed and found eligible for special ed. Needless to say, I think so much of this work we need to do together, the general ed side of the house as well as special ed. And part of decreasing our referrals to special ed is providing that strong universal curriculum and supports for all of our students, and providing lots of interventions prior to a referral so that we can kind of hopefully stem that tide of referrals to special education, which then leads to those numbers being over-identified. If any of the superintendents wish for me to meet with them and their special ed directors one-on-one to go over the elements requiring review, I'd be more than happy to do that and provide any assistance in that way. Needless to say, this is a required activities by California Department of Ed. And not only are they required activities, but they come with a cost too. I believe that both Fremont and Newark are now having to see 15% of their budgets redirected towards this work on disproportionality and the documentation of those funds being spent in that capacity. All right. Any other questions related to these Selpa monitoring activities? All right, I thank you in advance, each district, for the work that they'll be doing in this area. The next item that we have on the agenda is the annual service plan and the annual budget plan, item number 8. As many of you were aware, this morning at 8 o'clock, we held a public hearing and reviewed both the annual service plan and the annual budget plan. We streamed a public hearing presenting those two documents. The annual budget plan is a summary of the money that we are receiving, as well as how that money is expended. And as with most budgets, over 80% of those funds go to salaries and for both our classified and certificated personnel. Robbie, I know that you inputted the figures here for the budget. I'll start with you. Is there anything that you would like to add in reviewing the annual budget plan?
Yes. In looking at the annual budget plan, this data came from the SELPA members. It is totally different from prior annual budget plan. So we were all surprised that it was different because district SELPA members knows the spreadsheet that I usually or the data that I usually ask from them when this came out. It was I didn't hear a surprise from them, but definitely for me it was a surprise. They're no longer using what goal or how much money they're using for infant, for other severe or non-severe. And actually, I believe that is where California Department of Ed is changing their mindset of uh, of how special ed funds are being spent on. And also they're getting away from severe, non-severe, moderate to severe. I hope that I'm saying this correctly, Karen, but that is what I heard from some of my conversation. So they're just looking at how much money you receive and how much money you are spending on different areas of the budget, salaries, um, benefits, supplies, those kind of things. The good thing about this report that they're sharing with us is that they are now putting how much local contribution is being added to the program. So in the past, they have to calculate that. They don't include that in in the annual budget plan. Now they do. Just like what you see right now in in your screen. How much money are we getting for state special ed revenue, federal revenue, and local contribution? In the past, there's no line for local contribution. Somebody has to take out their calculator and make the calculation to get a local contribution. Um, so I appreciate all of the SELPA members, fiscal directors, because they were able to provide me the data very fast. I know it is very difficult for them because they're also preparing their uh, proposed annual budget for fiscal year 2021, but they were able to provide me the data. So thank you for the to the fiscal directors.
Robbie, in clarification in reading this then, is under the slide that Sarah has showing, we have the state special education revenue, we have the federal revenues, we have local contribution. Would local contribution then be the amount of monies that each of our districts are taking from their general education budgets to fund special education services?
Yes, that is true.
So at this point, all three of the districts together are spending a little over $81 million to add to the monies that each district receives for special ed.
Yes, I think some part of the annual budget plan would have the detail of how much per district is doing. I think on attachment 4, you would see how much each district is providing or contributing to the program.
Robbie, what page is attachment 4 on?
It is actually page 13. It is on
Page 13? No.
yeah, page 13 of the PDF file of the file.
Page 13 on mine, it shows this page. That's not correct. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, I see.
Yes.
How do I turn it around? I do not know. I see. Thank you. Sorry, everybody. I don't know how to turn it around without a bit of hassle.
Okay. All right. I thank you very much for reviewing that, Robbie. Do we have any questions around the annual budget plan? There was one correction that we were going to make, and that was actually on page 2, where it says the administrative unit's name. We wanted to make sure that reflected Fremont Unified School District. Fremont is the administrative unit. So that will change where it says administrative unit, that will change to Fremont. And I would reiterate exactly what Robbie said. We received many of these templates just last week, and kudos to each of the districts and their data teams for working so hard to work with Bobby and Amy and Robbie to try and get this data in a form presentable for the public hearing this morning, as well as today's meeting. Do we have any other questions on the annual service or annual budget plan? Okay. All right, next I will move in then to the annual service plan. What the annual service plan is a reflection of all the services that each of the districts provide to students. Thank you, Sarah. And again, we can stop right here. And again, I apologize for what may be some difficulty in reading this.
Let me see if I can flip it.
Oh, perfect, Sarah. That's great.
Ah, except it froze. Shoot. There.
Okay. So as we look at this page here, it lists the 3 districts under each of the LEAs, and then it has a series of codes on the other side. So each of those codes refers to a service provided by special education. So you can see there that there are over close to 60 different types of services that each of the special education departments are required under IDEA to provide. So code 330 indicates specialized academic instruction. I'll just pick another code, 350, individual and small group instruction. Code 415, speech and language services. So all 3 of the districts are going to be providing one or all of these services at one point. But for this document, for the annual services plan, it looks at one day and what services is the district providing on that day, and it captures it. So for example, all 3 districts are providing specialized academic instruction. It's something every district does every day of the school year. They're also providing the speech and language services as indicated by code 415. Fremont will be indicating a few more service codes because they're the administrator of the Infant Services Grant as well as the Transition Partnership Program. Some of these services also may not capture things that are provided during the course of the year. So for example, a student that's identified as blind may have what we call in special ed orientation and mobility services. That would be the service that helps them to negotiate traffic crossing a street or managing to get through the school grounds. And when, say, these services are captured on the date of October 2nd, perhaps Newark was not providing that service to a student at that time. We can still have a student that gets that service come in January and get that service for the rest of the year. So while we may look here and say, boy, in Newark, I know we're providing adaptive PE, but that's not indicated here. It may be that it just was not provided on the day that this snapshot was taken. Because we had to rush so fast and collect our data for this, we don't believe what you see on this form here may actually depict what the districts are providing. So when we look to this motion to approve this service plan, we're going to need to do so with the caveat that we can review the data and add some codes.
And Karen, this is Letty. So yes, that will be really important for Newark. I know that while this is a snapshot, I guess moving forward, it would be nice to kind of validate the data, but I also understand the constraints you all were under. So if it's appropriate, I would like to make the motion with saying that school districts will review and make some edits to make sure that we are providing a true picture of the services that we each provide in our districts.
I could not agree with you more. And I also really want to make sure that our data, not just for Newark, but for all three of the districts, is very clear and accurate. And in particular, Newark needs to make sure that they're, air quotations, getting credit for the services that they're actually providing. All right, that sounds good. All right, then what I would like to do is I would like to move forward with Letty's motion that we approve the annual service plan with the ability to make those edits to make sure that each district's currently the services that are provided are accurately reflected based on the data that's existing in SACE at this time. Okay. Do I have a second?
I'm a second.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor then of approving the annual service plan indicate by a thumbs up. Thank you. And do we have any nays? All right, thank you very much. It looks like both the annual service plan and the annual budget are passed. Great. In terms of the state budget update, Robbie alluded to some factors. I think Trustee Sweeney also talked about the budget just being approved. We will have governor's revisions. But as we look at this, as I said before, we have some great flexibility with our mental health dollars. We will also have increased funding for preschool. We are also having a few more discretionary funds as related to what they're referring to as lost learning opportunities. We will have more definitive information before the end of this month as to how those budgets are actually going to be finalized for the coming year. As Robbie noted, I do not anticipate that the amount of money that special ed received is going to decrease, and we may even see a very slight increase. Unfortunately, that very slight increase is not going to do a tremendous amount in offsetting the millions of dollars that each district is currently looking at. Item number 11 is our Special Olympics, and we collaborate with Special Olympics of Northern California. We've had a very strong partnership that's gone on, I believe now for the last 6 years. Every year we are increasing the collaboration between general education and our student athletes with disabilities. If any of, as the superintendents or trustees want a wonderful day, it's visiting one of our Special Olympics events. Typically through the course of the year, Fremont hosts a soccer event in the fall. Newark usually sponsors our basketball event in February, and very kindly New Haven hosts the track and field event, to which all 3 districts come, which typically is held in May, and this year was not held. We have a short synopsis of what occurred over the previous year, written by Bria Rosenthal, Bria Shepard, who is our Special Olympics coordinator. Bria does an outstanding job coordinating with our athletic directors and special education teachers in bringing together the athletes to participate in these events. At this point, we are in conversations with the leaders of Special Olympics to see what kinds of grants and partnerships we might be able to form this next coming year. Bria did reach out to teachers to see if they were interested in a virtual Special Olympics, and just to be really blunt, people had enough on their plates to have the room to develop some virtual Special Olympics this last year. One of the a very positive outcome is that Bria was looking at possibly needing to give up her position this year because she was commuting, but is eager to continue for the 2021 school year in whatever form that we're able to kind of pull these services together. Any questions from our trustees or superintendents, or any comments from our special ed directors? Okay. All right. The next, oh, go ahead.
Did I miss the local plan vote?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
I'm sorry to point this out, but I can't open it.
No, I really appreciate that. So item number 9 is the local plan. And again, we know as LEAs that are required many different kinds of plans. And when someone talks about a local plan, probably the one that comes to mind is the local control funding formula and the LCAP, the local control plan, that where we get extra monies as district and distribute those to the identified target groups. The local plan for special education is the plan by which districts organize, how they distribute the monies, and maybe what any kinds of programs that they run collaboratively. Just last year, when Sara was the director of the Mission Valley Selpa, the Selpa approved a local plan. This school year, every school district throughout the, or excuse me, every Selpa throughout the state of California was required to rewrite their local plans. There was a couple of areas added to the local plan, and the local plans then were required to be submitted this June. We have a draft that we brought to the January Regional Policy Board meeting, which was reviewed. And now we are bringing the second draft of this local plan to the Regional Policy Board for approval.
Karen,
yes.
We need the link is not
accurate on here. We need the link to be reloaded. Nobody can see the actual plan.
Okay.
Is that possible to do, Bobby? Or if not, Karen will have to share her screen.
Okay. Let me see. Let's see. Let me make sure I open this up here and see if I can change the sharing feature.
You have to share it to anybody with the link, not just FUSD.
Okay. I see. I think, Raul, you're on there.
Because he's FUSD.
Okay. And I'll go down in here. Okay, that now has been changed, that anyone with the link should be able to see that document.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as we have noted before, the areas in blue are the areas that were added. The first one being just a description of the geographic area covered by Selva. Another area was how we distribute our funds for low incidence disabilities. And once again, those are the specific monies that we receive for students that are deaf, blind, and orthopedically impaired. So we have a couple of options with the local plan right now. If we want to move and accept the local plan as it's currently written, we can go ahead and do that. The California Department of Education has extended the timeline for the local plan through June of 2021. So if there continues to be some areas of concern, and as superintendents or trustees that you believe we need to do some revisions, we certainly can dive deeper into that work. I can let you know that this document has been reviewed by the special education district directors, as well as our community advisory committee. And at this point, we do believe that it is a finished product. The ideas around describing specific roles and the procedures with which policy decisions are made is directly copied from the local plan that was approved last June. So other than the areas of blue, this document is not significantly changed. Do any of the district directors care to add or comment further on the work we've done this year on the local plan? Jackie? Okay. Okay. So the question before the Regional Policy Board is whether we choose to make a motion to approve the local plan, or if there's a different motion. And if we choose to approve it, then we need to vote on it.
This is Larry. Since it's gone through so many committees and our regional directors and everybody has had a chance to look at this and revamp it, I would move to approve this plan.
This is John Thompson. I'll second.
All right, we have a move to approve the local plan as it's currently written. All those in favor of approving the local plan, please indicate by thumbs up. Okay, do we have any nays to approve the plan? Any abstentions? All right. The local plan then is approved. All right. As we then move through our Regional Policy Board agenda, we have item number 12 is the calendar. We have the 2019 calendar noted there. I just wanted to say, as a Selpa organization, we ran a couple of really powerful presentations in the beginning, through the course of the year. In January, almost or somewhat ironically, we ran a presentation of social media and students with disabilities, and how being online and accessing online services and allowing students to interact via online platforms can have benefits for students with disabilities. Little did we know that come March, it would be required for everybody to get their education to interact through virtually. It was provided by our speech pathologist and also Sergeant Tang from the Fremont Police Department, who really just did an outstanding job of presenting the positives of social media, but also some of the concerns that parents need to be aware of, particularly for students with disabilities. We also had a student empowerment fair, and that was on March 7th. and we had attorneys come and present on how to protect students with disabilities. We also had our transition program speak, as well as, I believe, a woman from, was it Disability Rights? And right, this was very well attended by our parents, and yeah, we look forward to also including this next year in terms of our activities. Because of COVID-19 and the school closures, our special education recognition awards event was canceled, as well as the special education ball. We are looking right now into how we will be able to provide our parent education and advocacy events through the course of the 2021 school year, looking at more of a virtual platform. One of the positives that many districts throughout the state report that by offering these events for parents in this way has increased participation. So we will be coordinating and working over summer to plan outgoing or ongoing events for families through the course of the next school year. Item number 13 are the proposed schedule of regional policy board meetings for the 2021 school year. And we are required to have 4 meetings through the course of the school year. So those are our tentative dates right now. I will ask Bobby Platt, the Selpa secretary, to send out formal meeting notices. I know it's early now, but if you could look at these dates and check them with your schedules so that we can get them on everyone's calendars for the upcoming school year. At this point, I will turn over the presentation to our special education directors from each of the districts for a short synopsis of an update of what's going on in each district.
Karen,
Yeah.
Karen, before we do that, can we go back up to the beginning of the agenda and approve the minutes and the first item that Robbie reported on? We didn't have a quorum at that time.
Thank you very much, Bobby, for getting us back to the top of the agenda for that. And I believe the first item on our agenda was the approval of the January Regional Policy Board minutes. They are attached to the agenda. Hopefully you had a chance to review through those minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or edits to those minutes? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the January 14th Regional Policy Board minutes as they exist?
This is Jeff. I move.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we have a second?
This is Larry. I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Sweeney. So we have a motion with that seconded. Do we approve the, all those in favor of approving the January minutes, please indicate by a thumbs up. Okay, and do we have any nays? The minutes are approved unanimously. And then Bobby, again, was it the proposed operating budget?
So sorry. Yes, the first item in number 3.
Okay, so I don't think that that one requires being approved since he was just reporting on what the operating budget was. We needed the approval of the proposed operating budget and we did get that.
Yes, correct. Okay, thank you.
Great. All right, so if we move now into district reports, Fran, if you don't mind beginning, and then we can go to Sara and Jan.
Great. Incorporating without missing a beat distance learning into their repertoire of teaching strategies. It was a challenge and it has been a challenge. We did decide to move forward with ESY also in a distance learning format, and so that is starting very quickly. We also just graduated 200 12th graders, so we are excited for them to move on in their lives either to the transition programs in the district or to college, community college, or to a vocation. We had to put on hold our patterns of strength and weaknesses. Actually, we did the training, but we have not been able to implement fully assessment in that format due to the fact that we can't do in-person testing, standardized testing with students at that time. So we will revisit that in August to see where we're at in terms of being able to assess students with standardized measures. We are, as Karen, yep.
I'm gonna interrupt just for a second, just as a bit of a clarification. So what Fran is referring to is that the Selpa did collaborate to provide training to the school psychologists on how they determine how a student qualifies under the category of specific learning disability. And forever, psychologists use which is called the discrepancy model. They looked at what was the IQ and what was the measured achievement. And if the difference was great enough and they identified a processing problem, a student qualified for special education. Data and research in the field has method is not always the best, and current best practices in the field recommend using what Fran described as a method of analyzing a pattern of strengths and weaknesses that a student would demonstrate to really get an idea of how they're processing cognitively and what that area of weakness or disability might be. And so, you know, again, kudos to our school psychologists for delving in. And I can understand how they've probably had a little bit more time to kind of focus on some of that development right now. So sorry, back to you, Fran.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. So yes, they did have, in fact, that was one of the things we had our school psychologist engage in, was referring to the training modules that we did in August. Knowing that they wouldn't be able to test students right now was a little disheartening, but they did kind of brush up on their skills, and hopefully we'll be able to revisit that in the fall. We are, as Karen shared, in significant disproportionality for our white students who identified as emotionally disturbed, white students identified as other health impairment, and then Hispanic students identified with specific learning disability. So we've begun some focus groups in that area, and we'll be compiling our root cause analysis, working with our TA, our technical assistance facilitator, Maureen Burness. Aside from that, I just want to say that I've been in education a long time. This has been an extremely interesting period of time. I know that we'll never forget it. I want to give kudos to all of our special education teachers for the way that they stepped up and supported families during what has been extremely challenging, especially for our students who are high needs. So kudos to the teachers, and we're looking forward to August to see what the future holds.
Thank you, Fran. Director Kapler?
Sure. So, much like the areas that Fremont's working on, New Haven is working on, we started ESY yesterday, and we are going all virtual with that. So we did notice, a decline in our enrollment for ESY. I think parents, especially of younger students or students who are seriously cognitively impaired, may be experiencing some Zoom. We also are providing distance learning plans. We're not yet changing IEPs to reflect virtual. Just like the rest of you, we are engaged in sort of a three-pronged plan for fall, either all virtual, a reduced class size model where we see some kids at different points in the day so that we have fewer kids in one room, which we're calling a hybrid model. So there's some in-class time and some virtual time, or of course, should a miracle happen, totally in person, which I don't think anybody believes will be ready for it in the fall. I really appreciate that special ed teachers were on the committee. We have not yet begun to talk about what our moderate severe classrooms would look like. So I'd be interested in working with the other directors to see what sort of arrangements are needed to be made for those students in particular. I am really appreciative, Board Member Wang, of the technology we had in New Haven. I do feel like we were poised well to go to virtual very quickly. We work in a profession that does not move quickly towards innovation, and boy, when pushed, we really, as Karen pointed out, it's not just looking at their strengths and weaknesses, but the connection between the exact area of weakness combined with the exact area of academic struggle. And we felt really lucky. We were able to do some more Zoom training with our school psychologists during this time. So I'm hopeful that we will continue that path next year. And as a district, MTSS or RTI, which is the multi-tiered system support, is one of the areas that we're trying to move along towards to sort of help our data for statewide assessment really improve, as well as our discipline rate. So we have high hopes for that. And then other than that, we're really focused on these intensive monitoring activities. We have good participation at the director and principal level in New Haven, but it is quite a challenge. And now many of them are on break for summer. So we'll pick that up in the fall.
Thank you, Sarah. Jan?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. So Newark Unified School District, I think they did a really good job of going to the remote learning model. I would agree with Sarah and Fran that it was quite a change in how we provide services to students. Our teachers and our related service providers, speech therapists, occupational therapists, counsellors really did a very nice job of doing teletherapy for our students. And I think that on the most part, students did quite get that access, and they did continue to move forward with their goals. Continuing in that vein, looking at special education for the upcoming school year, we hired some in-house school psychologists, and we are looking at a multi-tier system of support. How do we start breaking down silos in special education, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3? Currently, we have a lot of students referred to special education, and looking at those interventions prior to being referred to special education is a really big focus for our district for the upcoming school year. In regards to the remote learning model and for the upcoming school year, we have been planning in our district, both in subgroups in secondary, elementary, and special education, on how do we open up the school year, looking at virtual only, looking at a hybrid model as well, and then expanding that out to full-day school eventually. We're also looking at assessments throughout the summer, whether or not we can do them remotely, and some in-person assessments. As Sarah mentioned before, and Fran, I think Karen did as well, we do have a number of initial assessments that we need to address, and also we have those students too, and how do we support those. Finally, I think our support staff in Newark did a really good job getting Chromebooks to all our students and families. And our board certified behaviour specialists, they actually provided a YouTube for our parents to support them in home instruction and what does that look like, having structures in place, etc. And we also provided a Padlet for both our teachers, service providers, and parents to access to help them with their online learning as well, which was a very big change for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. And once again, welcome to the Mission Valley Selva. It's been an interesting first year within the Selva, I'm sure.
Certainly has. Thank you, Karen.
I looked at our Google document, and at this point, it looks like we do not have any other public comment. And so I will move to item number 16 and ask if there are any other items from the board. Okay.
Karen, I do have an item. You did mention that we were discussed, like maybe at the 29th meeting, about the funds that were not used due to the shelter in place. Would that be something that would be discussed on the September 29th meeting?
We can definitely do that for the monies that were not used for the 19-20 school year. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Number 17, I just want to end with, and that I thought was very interesting that that the word or the Chinese character crisis is composed of two characters, one representing danger and the other representing opportunity. And I think that we are at a juncture of incredible opportunity for growth in education. And as hard as these times are right now, I think if we keep our focus on how we can really be making changes better for our kids. Special education is complicated. As you all know, we have texts and texts of laws and deadlines and rules around the provision of those services. It's expensive. It's very expensive. But I want to thank the trustees and the superintendents, as well as our district directors that we have leading us in that direction. And I know that together that we can make good informed programs and services for our students. Okay. Without any other issues that come up, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 11:03. And again, thank everyone for their participation.